My name is Rana Danaf, and I'm here a neuroscientist with the Center for Genomics and Systems Biology at NYU Abu Dhabi. So today I will tell you about my personal experience and my personal career path in neuroscience and how and why I became a neuroscientist and how I ended up here at NYU Abu Dhabi. But before I start telling you about my journey, I want to tell you what is neuroscience. And neuroscience is actually the study of the nervous system. It's made up of our brain and our spinal cord. And as you know, the brain is the most complex organ that we know of. And we need our brain for everything. We exist because of our brains. We can communicate with each other because of our brains. We can talk, we can see, we can do everything through our brains. And so, as you know, it's very important for us to understand the brain. And this is why we study neuroscience. This is why we study the brain. So we understand how we function as humans, and also to understand how other organisms in this universe function. And also we study neuroscience to understand how we develop as humans. As you know, babies and adults, they have completely different sets of behavior. And so how does our brain form and develop throughout our different developmental time stages? And ultimately, we study the brain because we want to understand malfunctions of the brain, so diseases of the brain, and ultimately to find a cure for them. And so, when I was in high school, I really loved biology. I really loved chemistry, and I was really interested in biology when I was doing, those science classes. And I always felt that it was so fascinating, how our brain works, how our body works. But at this time point, I didn't really know that neuroscience or research was a career path that I could pursue. So how did I become a neuroscientist? And so it started with my undergraduate study, and for this, I attended a university in Virginia called Virginia Commonwealth University. And I picked this university, and as all of you are now getting ready to apply for universities, I looked for different criteria. One of them is that VCU was one of the top universities in the state of Virginia, and it also had one of the top medical and science programs in the United States. And for there, I did a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry with a biology minor. And as you know, biology and chemistry are very interconnected. As you're sitting here, there are so many different chemical reactions that are occurring in your bodies. So chemistry and biology are very interconnected. But again, at this time, I didn't know what I wanted to really pursue with my love of biology and chemistry, whether it was medicine, whether it was research, whether it was anything else. And so for this, I tried to do a lot of extracurricular activities. I tried to do a lot of volunteering. So VCU has a medical school as well, and it has a hospital. So during that time, I tried to volunteer at the hospital because I love biology. I didn't know whether medicine, like I said, was a career choice that I wanted to take. And so I tried to volunteer in different departments. And one of them was the emergency room. And all these different volunteer opportunity led me to one particular experience that I really cherished, and it was very, very important for me. And it was to volunteer at the Healing Eagle Clinic. And it wasn't just a regular clinic. It was a clinic in Virginia, but for the Matapunai Native American tribe. And so it was a clinic that met every 2 weeks, and I used to work with patient intake. And all these experiences helped me to gain real life experiences that you don't get from the textbook. Just simply sitting in a classroom, you don't really get to gain these life experiences. I also got to, improve on my communication, my verbal skills, and I also get to be exposed to a culture that is really very different from my own. But one of the most important aspects of this volunteer experience is that the chief sister, the chief sister was actually one of the people who wrote my recommendation letter and allowed me to apply for my graduate studies. And so this is something that you would also be, schools and universities will be asking for, a recommendation letter. And all these different experiences are what sets you aside from other applicants. But really what helped me get to know that I love research and I wanted to pursue a career in research is that I joined this program through my university, and it was called the Honors College Mentorship Program. And through this program, the university pairs incoming students, first and second years, with upperclassmen who can provide you guidance and helps you support through the pathway that you would like to take. Let's say, for example, you really are interested in engineering, so they would pair you with an engineering student and they would help guide you and tell you about all these different things. And so I joined this program and I told them that I really am interested in biology, I'm interested in neuroscience. So they matched me with a PhD neuroscience student working on epilepsy in rats. And as you know, epilepsy is one of the malfunctions, one of the diseases of the brain. And it was the first time in my life where I entered the lab and I gained laboratory experience. And it was the first time where I worked with animal models. And so this experience is what showed me that research is actually the path that I would like to pursue. And had I not looked for these kinds of opportunity, I probably wouldn't have known that research is one of my passions. And so from this and from all the different volunteer experiences, the recommendation letters that I was able to receive, I decided to apply to the PhD program, again at Virginia Commonwealth University. And one of the really cool perks of being a PhD student is that you get paid a stipend. Basically, the university pays you kind of like a salary where you are allowed to, in a sense, you're working for the university, but at the same time completing the requirements for your major, for your PhD program. And this is something very helpful because you don't have to worry about anything else but to complete your studies. And during this time, like I said, I'm really interested in the brain. I'm really interested in the diseases that can impact our brain. And one of the things I wanted to study was congenital blindness. And something that a lot of people don't know about is that eyes are actually an extension of the brain. They are part of the brain. And you know that eyes, again, we use our eyes for everything. We use our eyes to navigate our environment. And so losing your sight is very detrimental. And a lot of people lose their sight at later stages in life. However, some people never experience the sensation of sight. And so we call this congenital blindness. And so for my PhD, I wanted to understand how our brain forms when we never have the sensation of sight. So how does our brain adapt and develop when we don't experience one of our senses? And for this, I started working with a mouse model organism. And this was actually the first time where I was able to dissect the brain, and I looked at the neurons, the cells that make up our brain. And you can see these three examples are examples of cells that I filled with a dye and I looked at under the microscope. And actually, as humans, we have these types of neurons in our brain. So now that you're sitting here, you're listening, you're looking at the screen, there are cells in your brain at this moment, similar to these cells that help you see and navigate your environment. And so this, I was able to obtain my PhD. I was able to complete my PhD thesis. And at this time point, a lot of PhD students, have different career choices. So some of them either can go and teach at a university. Other people can go and work for the government. Other people can go and work for a nonprofit organization. But for me, because research was my passion, I decided to stay and do postdoctoral training. And postdoctoral training, like Hanan just mentioned now, it's equivalent to residency if you're doing medicine. So it's basically further training, further studying in your career. And from this, I moved from Virginia all the way to California, and I joined the University of California, San Diego, or UCSD. And UCSD, I chose this university in particular because it also has one of the top neuroscience programs in the United States, and it hosts many world-renowned research groups. So you really are at the heart of research and science. And then at UCSD, I continued to work on the eyes and the brain, but this time I switched my disease model and I worked on glaucoma. And glaucoma actually is the second leading cause of blindness in the world. So as you can see, it impacts a lot of people. And I started working on glaucoma, and glaucoma is actually known as the silent thief of sight, meaning that people, when they have glaucoma, it's painless and it's very slow and progressive. So people don't really know that they have glaucoma until it's very late, at the very late stages when they have really lost the ability of sight. So in my research, I really wanted to understand this disease in much more detail, and I wanted to be able to find ways where we can detect this disease at an earlier stage, where we can help people and help them in detecting this disease before they lose the ability of sight. And again, I worked with mouse research models, and here you can see this is a mouse, and this is the eye of the mouse. And the research that I'd done was recognized by the research community. And actually, my study was selected to be the cover of the Journal of Neuroscience, which is one of the leading journals for neuroscience research. And all these opportunities actually, opened up many other doors for us, because our research team received a funding from President Obama. So at the time, Barack Obama was still president of the United States, and he gave our lab this brain initiative, this funding award, where we got to really help us to answer more questions about the brain and how the brain works. And it allowed us to do a lot of collaboration with different labs and scientists from all over the world. So for example, we were working with scientists from Princeton University, from Caltech, University of Washington, University of Tübingen in Germany. So this training really also allowed me to have this collaborative work experience, where I learned how to work with other research teams towards really achieving one goal. And in addition to all the research experience that I did, I got to do a lot of outreach activities. And one of these outreach activities is actually working with nonprofit organization. And one of these organizations is called Science Delivered, which was actually founded by one of my colleagues at UCSD. And through this nonprofit organization, we got to visit schools along the US-Mexico border. And these are really underprivileged students. They don't have any funding for science or technology or math class. And so we were able to go and take our research, our lab, to these schools. And really, it was really fascinating, because you get to see the joy of students when they experience doing their first science experiments. So a lot of kids are really scared from science. A lot of people are really scared from research. But however, it's very rewarding. It's a very rewarding experience. And once you learn to love science at a very early stage, it really helps you when you're an adult. And so all these opportunities actually opened up many other doors for me. And like I said, I really love research, and I wanted to continue with my research. And so I moved from UC San Diego to Northern California, and more specifically Stanford University. So I joined the neuroscience research team at Stanford University. And as you know, Stanford is ranked one of the top 5 universities in the world, along with Oxford, Harvard. So really, it's at the heart of research and scientific discovery. And there I continued working on glaucoma, and I continued working on mice. And as you can see here, this is an apparatus that we had, where this machine here, we can measure the pressure of the eyes of the mouse. And this allows us to know whether the mouse has glaucoma or not, and allows us to do more studies in the brain. And so from Stanford, I moved from Stanford all the way to NYU Abu Dhabi. And I won't have to tell you about NYU. Hanan just told you a lot about NYU, about the importance of this university in the US and all over the world. And I joined the research team here at NYU Abu Dhabi. You know, the environment here, we have some of the highest caliber scientists in the world. And so I was really excited to join the team. And joining NYU Abu Dhabi, I actually switched my model organism. And I started working on the Drosophila fruit fly. And you all know, you've all seen Drosophila, you've all seen fruit flies in your kitchen, you know, along your fruits. But not too many people know that fruit flies are actually a very important model organism in science. And because of fruit flies, we made so many different discoveries and advancement in different fields of science, specifically in genetics, biology, and neuroscience. And so we use here in NYU Abu Dhabi, we use the fruit fly to understand how the brain forms during development. And I'm just gonna tell you a little bit about fruit flies. And fruit flies, they are insects. So as other insects, they go through these different life stages. So they start as larvae, so this worm-like stage. They turn into pupa, or, you know, if you think of butterflies, you know, it's like the cocoon where they undergo further developmental stages. And then they turn into adults, which have the ability to fly. And so this is in our lab here. And you can see this is how we basically contain the fruit flies in our lab. And as you can see here, this is the larva, and these are the pupa. And here you can see these are the adult flies. And so we can study all these different developmental stages to understand really how the brain forms. And I'm gonna show you, because not too many people realize that, you know, all these organisms have brains and have very complex behaviors. So I'm gonna show you a dissection that we do in the lab. That way you really appreciate how delicate and how small these organisms are. So we use these fine forceps, and here this is a larva, where we can separate the head from the rest of the body. And you see this jumble of things, and so the brain is actually inside here. And so we can clean up and we can obtain the brain. And you can see here, it's starting to appear. This is the brain. It's extremely small, but yet it allows the fruit fly to do very, very complex behaviors. And so this is what the brain looks like under the microscope. And this is what a brain looks like when we can process it. And again, you can see these brains are extremely tiny, so they're less than 1 millimeter in size. But however, they're very complex. You see all these different structures that make up the brain of the fruit fly. And here you can see this big structure here. This is the eye, or the retina of the fruit fly. And here on this side, you can see all these different colors of neurons. And so these are neurons of the fruit fly. And we can use different genetic tools, which allow us to label them in different colors and study them in a lot more detail. So you can see it's very fascinating, something that people don't really think about fruit flies being a model for brain research, but it's actually a very important model. And we use it here at NYU Abu Dhabi to understand many aspects of our brain and our development and various diseases. And so just to conclude, so I just told you about my career path as a neuroscientist, and I hope that, you know, it might inspire one of you to become a neuroscientist or to actually pursue a career in research and biology. So neuroscience really allowed me to explore the brain firsthand. You know, I'm able to go to the lab every day and look and make new discoveries. It allowed me to work with people from all over the world. It allowed me to travel all over the world. And with research, you're continuously learning. So it's, you know, it's always learning new things, new techniques, new tools. And What's really important about research is not boring. So not 2 days are alike. So it's not like you're sitting in an office and doing the same thing over and over again. No, on the opposite. You know, every day is different. Every day you make new discoveries, which is very rewarding.